now we enter into a session where we will try and make sense of not only what we've heard here, but also of the world as we see it. And it's this panel focused on pathways to a sustainable future, challenges and opportunities. So no small questions here today. And with me on stage, I have Maria Veerasamy, CEO of Svenskt Tenn since 2011. And this is a company with the goal of lasting forever, owned by the Bayer Foundation. And then we have Victor Galaz, who is Program Director of the Bayer Institute's program Governance, Technology and Complexity, and also Associate Professor in Political Science at the Stockholm Resilience Center, Stockholm University. And then we have Caroline Schill. You're a researcher based at the Bayer Institute's program Behavior, Economics and Nature. You're also affiliated with the Stockholm Resilience Center and the Anthropocene Laboratory. So you have lots of different hats here today. And then finally, I'd like to welcome Uppsala Student of the Year 2022, Benjamin Verbeek, who holds a Master in Physics and who's passionate about how advanced physics and technology can contribute to a sustainable future. Right now, Benjamin is working to commercialize fusion. Yes. And yeah, exactly. So we have a very knowledgeable and fun panel here today. And the first question, of course, is that I would like you to think 50 years ahead into the future and see a sustainable future there for people in the planet. And then thinking, what is the biggest challenge for us as humanity today to get there? And then maybe to make that a bit more concrete, what part of that challenge are you personally working on? And maybe I start with you, Benjamin.
All right. Yeah. It's a pleasure to be here, first of all. Lovely speakers before us. I'm super impressed. No easy questions here today, but I can say one key challenge I think we're facing is our CO2 addiction. I think the world is pretty much addicted to over-exploiting resources. And we need to do something about it. As Johan so nicely stated, we are invoicing the future. And I think the future is growing up now. I think I'm part of that future. And it can feel a bit frustrating that we have all these invoices that we now have to pay. But there are things we can do about it, of course. I personally work in fusion, as was mentioned, which is sometimes presented as sort of the holy grail of energy production. Something that's safe, that has practically inexhaustible supply of fuel, and that is democratic, as in it can be produced basically anywhere in the world. The problem is, of course, that this is a tricky problem to solve and still has ways to go. But I am personally very excited to work on these issues.
So you're tackling the energy challenge and that way addressing our addiction to fossil fuels, basically, that we have now.
Exactly, and I think a way to tackle an addiction, it's very hard to break an addiction, and we like to consume energy. So I think we need to diversify our approaches. One way is to use less energy, but one way is to keep using energy. That's what we're doing right now. So if we can produce that energy more sustainably, I think that would be a good way forward as well.
Thank you. And Caroline, what's the challenge from your perspective?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Lisen, I'm a researcher in the field of sustainability science, and there the key challenge is really to identify the viable pathways in moving forward. So for sustainability in the Anthropocene, and that is really not a small task, as we've heard from these excellent speakers today, but the field of sustainability science is growing, which is really wonderful to see. And so we are not alone in tackling this challenge. And depending on what our approaches are and perspectives, and of course also expertise and interest, we have different entry points to this challenge. And so my entry point to this is really to look at the behavior of us humans. And of us humans in the different roles we have, right? So we are citizens, we are policymakers, but we are also community members. And so here the goal is really to clarify what's the role of behavior human behavior for sustainability, and then of course also behavioral change. What role does it have to play? And then in my work specifically, what I look at is really, I like to talk about two challenges that the Anthropocene poses. And now it was really nice that Jane was just speaking before me. You talked about the triple crisis. I'm going to focus here mostly on unprecedented global environmental change, so the nature part, but then also the inequality. We live in a highly unequal world. So actually inequalities are not only increasing, especially within countries, but also linking that to our biodiversity or climate change crisis. It's actually the responsibility for the crisis, as well as the impacts we feel. They are highly unevenly distributed across the world. So we really need to look at that challenge in tandem. And then what I really try to do in my work with my wonderful colleagues is really to understand, okay, but then how do we perceive these changes that come our way? So these drastic environmental changes that some of us are really heavily affected by, really directly with our livelihoods even. How do we deal with these massive uncertainties? But also what is actually the effect of these inequalities on our capacity and willingness to take collective action, because we need to do something about it. So how can we actually, what is the knowledge what is the understanding we need to have to like actually make concrete suggestions? And luckily I'm not alone. And the last point I would like to make before I hand over to the next panelist is we are actually working in a large Formas-funded project that's hosted at the Bayer Institute on this challenge of understanding the synergies and trade-offs between reducing inequalities on the one hand and really safeguarding the biosphere on the other. And this is actually a project that emerged directly out of the Bayer Young Scholars Program, so that I was part of a little while ago now. But that's really, so that's really wonderful to see how we can tackle this together with all our different perspectives and entry points.
Thanks, Caroline. Victor.
Thanks. I mean, there are a couple of issues, and again, these are issues we're working with in the program, so they're all related. And I think going back to Johan's slides on the great acceleration, many of these, or most of them, are driven by technological change and technological innovation. And we're in a different phase of technological innovation, with everyone now talking about artificial intelligence and digitalization. I mean, to me, realizing what this means for biosphere-based sustainability is key, and actually redirecting how these trends are moving. Because if you look at the current trends, of course you can do amazing things with AI. You can improve environmental monitoring, and we can run servers much more efficiently. But if you look at the aggregated trends, it's extremely extractive. It's an extractive industry. So one person phrased it in this way, that we tend to think about the digital economy as a cloud, but it's actually a mine. So the question to me is like, how do we steer that technological innovation in a way that is more in tune with the planet and within sustainability? The other aspect to it, and that relates to what you said, Caroline, is that we need to do that steering in a world that is highly unequal and polarized. I'd love to talk about the US election with you, Jane, at some point. But I think getting to that stage where we actually realize that technological change is not neutral. It distributes benefits, it distributes risks in different ways. And how do we make sure that that distribution doesn't amplify inequality and actually helps people and helps us connect to nature in a different way? So those two, to me, in 50 years looking back, if we manage to bend those bad curves, we'll be better off.
Thanks a lot for that work. And then the final word on this part of the challenge and what you're working on, I give to you, Maria.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be here. It's a bit strange because I'm something different to all of you who's working with other things. That I'm working in the trade, working in a company selling interior, and we are 100 years this year. And in a way, it's good to listen to all of you here today, because if you work with a long-term base in the ground as we do, it feels like we have a solution for the trade if more could work in the way that we do. But then the customer needs information. And I think the big challenge is to give information and to make people understand what choices can we do in our everyday life. And I think that is a big challenge. For me personally in the company is of course to make sure that we have producers for the things that we sell. Since we are working, now we are sitting on almost all the furniture that's around us is from Svenskt Tenn. And all of them is a challenge to make. And to have people to get to know the craftsman in a 50 years time, that's a challenge. More than maybe to find the material. So I think that is the human source.
The craftsmanship, knowledge and experience. Yes. And I know also you create your things and your furniture to last for a very long time.
Yes.
Yeah. How long?
Who knows?
Yeah.
We are only 100 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take care of the furniture, I think they will last for many generations. And if you work with a style like this, it comes from the arts and crafts movement. So that, in fact, was a little bit against industrialism. And when we saw on the map here, when the problem started, I think we were on the other side of choosing another way of producing things without getting into big scale, without getting into efficiency, to make it cheaper, to make it an easier production. We are not looking for an easier production. We are looking for exactly as the designer once made it. That is how it should be produced.
And it's interesting that humans have this dual nature between, we are on the one hand, as you say, addicted to energy, behavior-wise, we have a challenge for collective action. We have a challenge to understand tipping points and so on. Technology is very much driving us, and we think we're in the driving seat, but we're not really. And yet we also have this capacity for more long-term thinking. We can see beauty, we can collaborate, we can think long-term. So I want to also, and it's amazing to have a panel here who have all of these different perspectives represented from energy to behavior to technology to craftsmanship and beauty. But if we then move into more the opportunity side of things, you have all challenges that you're raising and that you're working on contributing to solving. But where do you see some lights in the cracks and some reasons for hope or opportunities in your different work? And maybe we go that round now. Yeah, if that's fine to continue with you, Maria.
But I think that the interest of things that has some kind of quality. I mean, what is quality? It depends on what you consider quality. But I think quality is something that you are looking for, and it also feels good to even buy second-hand clothes. And I don't want to point at you, Cecilia, but you have a lovely dress today, and it was made very long time back, and it still lasts, both design, quality, and the style. And timeless things lasts. So I think this is a great opportunity for people who has really made some timeless things to last over time, and that you can sell. If you don't want to keep it, you can sell it to someone else. It has a value. So I think that's a great opportunity.
Victor?
Hope. I think
or opportunity also. I think opportunity, because hope is a feeling, and it's fine that you don't
opportunity.
feel it at the moment.
I mean,
what is the opportunity you
I do
see?
feel hope, but okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to force it.
I think in terms of opportunities coming from the field of research we're in, is that we see so many co-benefits in transitioning into something different. I mean, we see benefits in people's health, in the type of food we eat, in the cities we live in, like the jobs that we will get, the security that we will get in that transition. Then, of course, the challenge is to create a political action based on that science. But I think looking back 50 years, now that we're celebrating the 50 years, like the field that we're working in sustainability science has grown a lot. And there's a lot of more people, a lot of young people. It's very diverse, very creative, and we're all ready to get our hands dirty and support that transition through evidence. So that gives me a lot of hope.
And how can we nurture that type of opportunity then that you describe, where you can see those co-benefits, and that, you know, if only there was political will? Is there anything we can do to sort of make those seeds grow?
I mean, we can't get away from that. You need to move from action. But I mean, since we are here celebrating the 50th year of the Bayer Foundation, I think the need for free, independent, curiosity-driven sustainability science research that works for change, I think that you cannot overestimate how important that is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisen, for asking this question. And I'm happily embracing the emotion of hope, actually, because I think as a researcher in sustainability science, it can sometimes be really difficult to remain hopeful. So I think it's so important that we ask ourselves this question, but then also share our sources of hope or opportunity. And I would like to highlight two that is really closely related to the type of work I'm engaging in. And one is actually, we humans care. That's, I mean, people that sit here, right, and many more. So we care about the state of the planet. So there is actually one large-scale survey after the other actually showing that we care. And then the way this care is actually expressed is in like so many initiatives and movements across the world in so many different domains of society that's actually happening. So only last week in this very room, we've learned about the eco-jurisprudence movement, which is a global movement for rights for nature and more earth-based laws. So this is just one example of many, and we are actually at the moment looking into initiatives and movements across the world in a project that I do with colleagues here at the Anthropocene Laboratory. And it's just amazing to learn about this. And then the other one, and I think you mentioned it also briefly, Lisen, is, we collaborate. We can come together when it matters. I think the pandemic was one of these examples. But also, we see this in our research on collective action. We really can identify enabling conditions where it works. But then also what I would like to highlight with that is, because then sometimes it's like said, oh yeah, but that's because we are self-interested. That's because it's for our own good. And yes, that might be, but I actually think, and that's what research shows, it's much more instructive to look at us humans as social beings that are highly adaptable. And we are actually wired, I mean, literally wired to connect and care. And I think that perspective like really opens up like totally different ways of like looking at the world. And I just think that gives me hope. And I hope also to you.
Thank you. And Benjamin.
These are some really great answers. I will do my best to add something. So first of all, I of course work in technology, and I want to say that I think as someone who works in tech, you have a big responsibility also to choose what you work with. Just as we heard, it is a bit double-edged. It can lead to more exploitation as well. So I think there is a great responsibility there for young people coming into the field to choose what we want to work on and really think about the consequences of that. And I think that is happening in part. I also think that there is a great opportunity, and there is hope, as we say. I work a lot with kids as well. I talk about fun science, and they are really inspiring to talk to. They take these matters seriously, they care deeply, and it gives me hope every time I hear that. And lastly, also as a scientist, I am really happy that as we hear today, that we are learning more and more. We are gaining more and more facts. And the more we know, the better we can act, and the more informed decisions we can make. And I have hope that we will continue to do that, and especially fuel this new knowledge into our existing systems. And turning them from something that's unsustainable to something that is long-term sustainable.
Thank you. And I want to open the floor actually to the audience to consider also what sparks of hope do you see, or sparks of opportunity, or what opportunities are you working to realize in this space? Because as we've heard here, it's and the whole afternoon has been about that. It's about each and every one of us now taking that responsibility and joining this work for humanity on planet Earth. We've never been in this situation before. No species has ever been in this situation before, where we have such fundamental change and influence on the planet, and yet we're so dependent on it. But what we have is that we also have this capacity to discuss and make sense of that. We have the science to tell us what this means, and we can come up with pathways to the future together. So any comment from the audience would be interesting. And also if you have a reflection or a question to the panel. We have a few minutes for that, actually. Can you imagine? Yeah. Gary?
So I'm Gary Peterson. I'm a professor at Stockholm Resilience Center. But I just want to mention, so I co-founded a project called Seeds of Good Anthropocene that started 10 years ago on the other side of the building here with two of the people, Unsi Biggs and Elena Bennett, who are on our Bayer Fellows and involved aboard the Bayer. And that's been going for 10 years, and we look about these seeds of a different futures. And we're inspired to this to try and also help make methods to explore more pathways to more radical and desirable futures, to change the way global assessments think about the future, and to connect all these different seeds together. And we've actually, there's lots to do, but we've done that. We've changed the way that at least IPES has approached global scenarios. We've worked a lot with food people around the world to do this, and have trained many young people to do that. So that's what I feel is very helpful, but it's also something that's grown out of connections made here through the Bayer Institute.
Yes, thanks, Gary. That's a great resource. If you can't think of something that gives you hope, you can look into that Seeds of the Good Anthropocene database, and you will find so many things that people are working on all across the world. I see a hand up there. Is it Louise?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. My name is Louise. What I'm saying, I work at SRC, but I also work at Alba Eco, and we've been working 25 years to take the science to translate it. And right now, I work a lot in a project where we're working with agriculture to make agriculture more, transform Swedish agriculture into not just carbon sink, but also with more biodiversity, soil health, etc. And I was really inspired. It brings me hope to work with nature, like Jane brought up, and also the way I've learned to collaborate in this group is also how we work. So any criticism from any soil scientists that's wondering what we're doing, we're like, yeah, but how do you do? What do you think? How do we change this? So I think that's an area for hope, but also giving tribute to the works that's been run here.
And we have room for two more quick ones. Yes, please.
I think in the public sphere we are also at a point when so many people have known what's going on, learned more and more. But on the other hand, change hasn't cost them anything. Now they realize there are costs. And then it's so important, I think, to bring up some of what we've heard today, that there are benefits. There are benefits to change. You can have a better life. And for us to express that is quite a challenge, to do it in a trustworthy way. And I think you are on the way of doing that.
Thank you so much. And then so it's you.
Hi, I'm Carolina, and I'm not a scientist, but I've been working with sustainability for 30 years. I just try to get my head around that we are trying to do something with all these resources that we have on the planet. And I'm just thinking, we can't do we can't do things of nothing. We need resources to do anything, even though it's sustainable, even though it's renewables, so we need to have a regenerative system. And we are becoming more people on Earth. What is your view or your thoughts on because sometimes it just feels that we're running around in the same wheel and thinking, we're going to do this, we're going to do renewable resource, we're going to do fusion, and we're going to do. But it's, as you said, Victor, a little bit. We have the scientific knowledge, but we also have the technology and the innovations that really drives this huge machinery that we have.
I think it's a huge mental shift for us as humans to take, is to realize that we live in this biosphere that we need to start collaborating with instead of exploiting. And it's something we've not really had to do so much in the past, many of us, because the biosphere has been so plentiful. But I think it's a very massive question that I think we also will work on through the mingle, not the least, and then also in the coming decades. Does anyone want to respond to that specific comment?
That's a big comment. that's good for bingo.
It's a mingle comment. All right, we will wrap up this panel now. And my final question to you connects to that source of motivation. What is it that keeps you working on these challenges of securing pathways for people on this planet every day? And there, I think I start with you, Benjamin, again, and we go back here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a very short. This is going to be like 2 sentences.
Oh, that's hard. I will try. So, when I grew up as a kid, I remember very fondly how I was very excited about the future, because now I have an entire lifetime to take the state of the world right now and make it slightly better. But this depends on the fact that the world will not become worse if I do nothing. So this is, I think, is a very critical sort of assumption that I made as a kid and just took for granted. And now we see that is not something we should take for granted. But it motivates me that I think I can add something. That's a personal motivation. And secondly, I've written here, I have to say it, it's really fun to tackle these challenges and to work with challenging problems. That also brings me hope.
Meaningful and fun.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Caroline?
Yeah, so for me it's all my colleagues and collaborators. I mean, in academia and beyond, also communities I work with in the field. Because there is not much that motivates me more in my work than really this genuine collaboration, where we really develop ideas together, but we also don't shy away from different perspectives and tensions, but work with them productively. So several of you are here in the room, so also thank you to you for that.
This is something that we research. This is going to sound weird, but I think social media. I mean, the power. No, I know you're laughing, and we studied misinformation, disinformation, all the crap. But if you look beyond the crap, take one step back, and then you see like the expansion of digital connections between people. You just remove all the crap. You see a lot of empathy happening, and you see a lot of collective problem solving, and that's exactly what we're going to need, right? But you need to remove a lot of crap on top, but you will find it there. That gives me a lot of hope.
And it's a source of motivation that we have that, worthwhile keeping.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Maria, what's your motivation?
I think the things that you can do with your hands, everything you can do with your hands, I can take your hand. And that is, you can do things and you can connect with people. I think that is the main things.
It's amazing, those hands that we have. And if we look at the animals, they don't have these hands. There are several things they cannot do. So it's something we contribute to the biosphere, our hands, for sure. Yeah.
Use them.
Yeah, we should use them. Yeah, carefully. All right, please join me in thanking the panel with a warm hand. Tack så mycket.